is respected.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. The British government has ordered a probe into foreign financial interference in politics as the government cited the case of former senior member of Reform UK who was jailed for taking bribe of $53,732 to promote Russian interests in the European Parliament. European leaders signed the convention and has launched a Hague-based International Claims Commission to assess Ukraine's claims over Russia and Ukraine war, with more than 86,000 claims filed and the World Bank estimating $524 billion needed for reconstruction. The host broadcaster of the next Eurovision Song Contest, Austria's ORF, has said that it will not ban the Palestinian flag from the audience or drone out booing during Israel's performance. The 70th edition of the contest in May will have 35 entries, the smallest number of participants since 2003, amid boycott over Israel's participation. Italy's ruling parties are urging caution in the use of frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine, according to a draft parliamentary resolution, saying the impact on state finances should be carefully assessed. This comes as the EU assesses using the frozen assets to back a loan for Kyiv's military and civilian needs. Philippines immigration says the father and the son behind Australia's deadly Bondi Beach attack spent most of November in the country. Officials say the father entered the Philippines as an Indian national before returning to Australia. Thailand says Cambodia must be the first to announce a ceasefire to halt more than a week of deadly border clashes. Bangkok says Cambodia, which it calls the aggressor, must also cooperate sincerely in bordering demining efforts. Myanmar's junta has said that detained former leader Aung San Suu Kyi is in good health despite her serving a 27-year prison sentence. Kyi, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, was detained after a 2021 military coup that ousted her elected civilian government and sparked a civil war. According to astronomy reports, interstellar comet 3I Atlas will make its closest approach to Earth on 19 December this year, giving a final and best chance for ground-based observatories to study the rare object before it leaves the solar system forever. Now for this hour, we start with Russian attacks. According to reports, Russia has launched dozens of drones at Ukraine's southern Odesa region overnight, triggering a large fire at an industrial site. Odesa's governor Ole Kuiper has said that the blaze broke out at a warehouse storing household appliances. No casualties were reported. Video released by Ukraine's State Emergency Service has showed firefighters battling the flames inside a storage facility. Reuters has verified the location of the footage as Odesa by matching buildings, warehouse layouts, structures, utility antennas, piping, and walls with file and satellite imagery, though the date of the video could not be independently verified. The attack comes as Odesa continues to grapple with widespread power outages. Kuiper has said that more than 280,000 households in the region remain without electricity following recent Russian strikes. According to reports, Russia has launched dozens of drones at Ukraine's southern Odesa region overnight, triggering a large fire at industrial site. Odesa Governor Ole Kuiper has said that the blaze broke out at a warehouse storing household appliances. Now for this discussion, we welcome former Indian Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at the escalating or continuing strikes from both sides, how do you think this is jeopardizing the peace talks And how close do you think are we to the peace deal between Russia and Ukraine?
From the media coverage, it appears that they are on the last mile, the last lap, and that is one reason that both sides are trying to secure maximum ground and inflict maximum damage on their opponent, so that after the ceasefire or peace deal is signed, they would have to stop all those things and the situation on the ground would become frozen. So, whatever the two sides want to achieve, they have a small cynical window right now to use uh, in terms of time, in terms of their capabilities, and uh, they are busy doing that. Odessa is, for example, Ukraine's largest and probably the only functioning port of consequence. And if that port was to have significant damage, uh, Ukraine would be pretty much a landlocked country, uh, subject to further uh, sort of pressure from Russia and his allies. Similarly, on the Donbas area, the battleground has seen in spurt of action with both sides trying to gain ground to hold once the ceasefire comes into effect. Ukrainians have shown their reluctance to cede further ground during negotiations despite great American pressure. They are not willing to cede ground in Donbas area, with President Zelensky citing the constitutional requirement of a referendum. And a referendum is difficult to hold in the current insecure and unsettled situation. So it's a reductio ad absurdum. One thing leads to another, and a stalemate becomes more the case, then the referendum's requirement would suggest. So all that points to the last mile scrimmage with European Union to trying to get its hands on some $300 billion worth of frozen Russian funds, so that they can strengthen Ukraine's position with weapons, with economic assistance, etc., which may not be viable if a peace deal comes into effect and the money would have to be returned to Russia. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for sharing that. And Ambassador, now bringing security guarantees to our discussions, to what extent can the proposed security guarantees, the one that we saw today, like NATO-style commitments or a European monitoring force, how do you think they will provide Ukraine with lasting protection without escalating the conflict, or do you think Russia will allow such?
Well, it's a it's a pretty steep wish list that Ukraine has. They would have ideally liked to join NATO, if not join NATO, and have Article 5 of NATO Charter kind of situation where attack on one is considered as attack on everyone. But even that seemed to be not in the offing. Uh, Not only Americans, but a number of NATO members and European Union members are reluctant to do that carte blanche to Ukraine because they don't want to burn all their boats with Russia. Russia remains the largest energy supplier potentially speaking, to the European Union and permanently antagonizing Russia by signing such a deal, stationing troops from European Union countries in Ukraine, giving security guarantees may have a price to be paid in terms of lower gas or oil connectivity from Russia. I think the feasible security arrangement that seem to be on the card is a European Union kind of arrangement where in case any one of the countries is attacked, the other countries render whatever possible assistance of significance to prevent that country from going under. So that is part of the European Union's own charter. And if Ukraine is to be offered a consolation prize of joining European Union in an accelerated manner, then it'll be almost automatic that they would get this kind of guarantee. But Ukrainian president is also keen on American security guarantees, and President Trump has lately indicated that United States may be, after all, willing to give some kind of guarantees between with Ukraine, standing to benefit from American assurances. Now, as we saw in Doha, for example, when Israel attacked Palestinian Hamas outfit in Doha, United States did not protect Doha, even though they had a commitment of similar kind. So, how far would United States under Trump go in giving such watertight guarantees, platinum stature guarantees, as Mr. Trump has himself called, remains to be seen. And only future would tell if this would happen in case some Russian infraction of ceasefire or peace deal comes to fore. Thank you.
Right. Very insightful and interesting. With that, I would like to thank Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev for joining us today and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now moving to US, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics has released its delayed jobs data for October and November of this year, revealing mixed signals for the US labor market. While the number of jobs added in November exceeded the expectations, the unemployment rate rose to a 4-year high. According to the report, the economy added 64,000 jobs in November, which was better than the estimate of 45,000 by Dow Jones. This followed a sharp decline of 105,000 jobs in October. The rate rose to 4.6% in November, up from 4.4% in September, reaching its highest level since September 21st. The data was delayed by a 43-day federal government shutdown, which has led to concerns about the accuracy and noisiness of the data as the BLS faced challenges in data collection for October. In fact, the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell cautioned that the data should be viewed with a skeptical eye. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. John Rosomondo. He's the president of Viking Research Associates and geopolitical analyst, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Rosomondo, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at thank you. Now looking at this, what more can you tell us about the reality of this news from U.S.?
Well, you have investment firms like J.P. Morgan chiming in about the latest changes and downgrade and the weakening of the U.S. Job market, blaming the Trump administration's tariff policies for unexpected increased costs being incurred by U.S. businesses. That is, according to J.P. Morgan, resulting in decreased hiring and a weakening of the job market, which is now at 4.6%, which is still relatively high in terms of employment for the U.S. market, but it warns that next year could be a turbulent time.
Right. And what factors do you think could explain this apparent contradiction between job growth in November and the rise in the unemployment rate?
Well, it's when you have companies looking at their bottom lines. I mean, the easiest thing for them to get rid of is overhead. Which means like letting people go, furloughing employees. And it's something that the Trump White House needs to consider going forward.
So how should policymakers interpret these mixed signals?
Well, it's basically projecting into next year that the United States could be in danger of an increasing unemployment crisis. So I think that's what needs to be taken into account and make corrective actions.
And how might the delayed and potentially noisy data due to the federal government's shutdown, how do you think this has affected the Federal Reserve's approach to interest rates and broader economic policy?
Well, the closure of the federal government for a month meant that the people who normally compile the labor statistics were themselves furloughed. So it impacts the haste in which they put the report together. So it could, have some sort of distortion.
And to what extent should this short-term labor market fluctuations, such as the one October decline and November rebound, influence long-term decisions about employment, inflation, and economic stimulus?
Well, I think that in the long run, the economy will absorb the tariffs. I mean, it always seeks an equilibrium. So I think in the short term, companies are going to, curtail hiring decisions and potentially lay workers off as they adjust to these new higher rates. But in the longer term, the economy will absorb the tariffs.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Mr. John Rosamando for joining us today, all the way from Washington, D.C., and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we stay in the U.S. A shocking tragedy has been reported in Los Angeles after the deaths of filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer Reiner. The couple were found dead at their Brentwood home on Sunday night and were later confirmed to have been victims of homicide. The 32-year-old son, Nick Reiner, has been arrested and booked on suspicion of murder. It has been indicated by authorities that the couple are believed to have been stabbed to death. Nick Reiner was located hours after the bodies were discovered and was taken into custody later that night. He's being held without bail. Emergency services were initially dispatched to the residence following a report of a medical emergency. Both victims were pronounced dead at the scene. The investigation is being led by the Los Angeles Police Department's Robbery Homicide Division, and a search of their house has been carried out under warrant. The case is being closely followed as investigations continue into the circumstances surrounding the deaths. Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Andrew Latham. He's an international affairs expert and joins us live from Minneapolis. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Can you tell us a little bit about this particular director and individual, Mr. Rob Reiner, and what legacy does he leave behind now?
Well, he's an incredibly iconic celebrity in the United States, almost irrespective of generation. When I was a kid really, He was one of the co-stars in All in the Family. His nickname on the show was Meathead. And so for people my age, we grew up with Rob Reiner, but subsequent generations also did. He went on to star in a few other TV and movies, but he really established his name as a producer and director. He was a filmmaker, and he made a number of really iconic films over the years. So whether it's my generation or the younger generation or the generation younger than that, if not a household name himself, his films and his shows were household names. A celebrity, not quite unparalleled, but certainly in the top stratum of celebrities in the United States film industry. And I have been hearing all sorts of people in all walks of life, really, speaking about his death and his wife's death and the tragic circumstances around it. So, in terms of celebrity politics, in terms of criminal news stories, this one has really popped.
Right, it's really sad to hear that, and knowing your generation, watched him and knew him, and now how should media balance and the public balance the demand for information with respect for due process and also the privacy of these, public figures, families in high-profile homicide cases like this one?
Right, it was a very good question, because we should always respect due process. That's fundamental, and we should respect people's privacy. Now, celebrities, the bar is a little lower. He wasn't a private person, but his wife really was, and his son certainly was. And so they are entitled. First of all, the son's entitled to the presumption of innocence until proven otherwise. But also, despite the cross currents here, on the one hand, this is a huge media story about the celebrity and Rob Reiner, etc. On the other hand, this is a family tragedy and a crime, and it needs to be treated and investigated as such. So we've got two competing kinds of impulses at work here. It is public knowledge and well known that Rob Reiner's son, who's been accused of this heinous crime, has had a difficult time. He's admitted to addiction to various substances, a period of homelessness, etc. He certainly, while entitled to privacy, there are things we know about him already. I would advise people and recommend not to speculate too much about his guilt or innocence. We have, despite what sometimes is the appearance, we have a robust legal system in this country and in California, and the elite police unit that's investigating this will get to the bottom of this, I have no doubt. And then there'll be an arraignment, and then there'll be a trial, and he'll be found innocent or not innocent, guilty rather, or not guilty, and we can take it from there. But it is a cornerstone of American jurisprudence that one is innocent until proven guilty, and it's a cornerstone of American public culture that one is entitled to one's privacy.
Yes, very well said. Thank you for highlighting that. And lastly, Professor, how can communities and institutions better recognize and respond to varying or warning signs of severe family conflict or mental health crisis to help prevent such tragedies?
Well, a very good and appropriate question, because this does, if things shake out the way in which it looks like they will, this tragedy is the product of a prior tragedy, an underlying tragedy, which is a mental health issue. Which manifested as substance abuse, which manifested as homelessness, and there's probably much more to the story in terms of his relationship with his parents and sisters, etc. But the bottom line there is that with appropriate care, many of these sorts of cases, not involving murder obviously, but involving other kinds of suffering, can be dealt with, can be handled, and the worst outcomes can be avoided if one has a mental health system that can detect these issues without violating privacy rights, of course, and then provide appropriate treatment for the underlying issues, whether those are more sociological or psychological or physiological. It depends on the case. I'm not sure that any healthcare system on the planet Earth is quite there. I think that we have been moving in that direction as a civilization for many years now. One hopes that at some point we will get to the point where such tragedies do not happen because the underlying conditions can be detected and treated.
Right. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Professor Andy Latham for joining us from Minneapolis and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to EU. EU lawmakers are backing tighter controls on imports of agricultural products under a potential trade agreement with the South American trade bloc, Mercosur, as Brussels tries to get skeptics on board to sign the EU's largest ever trade accord. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is expected to fly to Brazil and at the end of this week to sign the accord, which was reached a year ago after talks with the bloc of Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. But the deal can be blocked by a big enough minority of EU members. In fact, France and Italy have sought to delay a vote, while Poland opposes the deal. Meanwhile, Germany and Spain and Nordic countries say the agreement will help exports hit by US tariffs and reduce dependence on China by providing access to minerals. Now we move on to South America. A powerful storm system lashed southern Brazil, destroying the 24-meter-long replica of the Statue of Liberty outside a Havan megastore in Guaíba, Rio Grande do Sul state. On-the-scene footage shows the dramatic fall of the huge structure into an empty parking area. Brazil's civil defense agency Defesa Civil has estimated that gusts of wind surpassed 90 kilometers per hour in the area. Several videos of it immediately went viral on all social media platforms, showing the slow tilt and fall of the statue. The large replicas of the Statue of Liberty are one of the recognizable features of Havan stores. This is not the first time that a replica in one of these structures has been affected by an extreme weather event. In 2021, one such replica collapsed in Capão da Canoa during a cyclone with winds between 70 and 80 kilometers per hour, which only caused material damage. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.